Hey, all right. It's 7 o'clock on a Thursday night. We are resilient. We are war.
Yeah.
And 40 Michael Geary of Hellfish Haven is not feeling too hot tonight. So we wish him well, speedy recovery. Drink your water, take your Motrin, 40 Mike, and get back on here next week. And got Jeremy Daniels checking in. Jeremy, how you doing? So, I'm Travis. I'm one half of War. We are resilient, and our guest tonight is Stephen Russell, U.S. Army veteran. Uh, just the talents, man, just keep coming. First you're an artist, then you're a speaker, and now you are a true bona fide author with your own book. I'm about halfway done. Troublemaker, the greatest dog and pony show. And you're going to be in Massachusetts at Plastic City Comic Con. Steven, man, I mean, you truly are like on the move, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And it's really good to come back to Plastic City Comic Con this year because that's kind of where this whole thing just started rolling. And so I'm ready to come back, with the fire.
Nice, nice, nice. So it's Plastic City Comic Con in Leominster, right?
Yeah.
All right. Um,
It's at the Doubletree Hotel.
oh, the hotel this time
Mhm.
instead of a sports venue. It was a really like different venue, but it was okay. It was
Yeah.
really cool, man. I mean, what did you think about last year going there?
Last year was a great first step. Put my toe in the water and kind of like feel how to do this and what it was going to be like, what it would take to kind of do this thing. And so that it was a nice introduction. And the setting there, even though like you were saying it was at the sports center in Fitchburg, it still felt kind of intimate, even though it was all spaced out and all that. But from what I'm seeing on the maps and stuff of this one at the hotel, it seems a lot more organized and a lot more like geared for the whole convention routine.
So like a true like convention feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went last year. I'm trying to be in three places at one time Saturday. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. I wish it was. We talked about that, but I remember going last year, and
Hmm.
I'd gone to some comic book conventions in Dallas, Texas, and other places. There was the Boston Comic Con that I'd gone to. I didn't know what to expect here because it's not your typical Comic Con. This is more like indie artists, indie people doing stuff, and it's for them so they can get their work profile. But I walk in there and I pay my money. I go in there and I was very happy. Like you were right up front. Like there was no missing you. There you were, and it was kind of cool because I'd had you on the show. We started talking, and then you're going to be there. Then I'm like, wow, he's here. He's actually here. He's actually doing this thing, and you had it was just cool as all get out to see people coming up and engaging with you and the story and Mr. Pittman, all that good stuff, man. I mean, it was really like when you like meet a celebrity or royalty, in my view.
It's pretty cool. It felt like you know when you're in the moment, you're not thinking that way, and you're just like, oh my god, is everything going right? And, do I have everything organized? Is this all working? And it was a real crapshoot, but I'm glad I did it because it gave me the enthusiasm and the drive to like keep pushing and to keep trying. We've got advertisers this year, Doug with Fubar Studios, and Mike with After Action Reviews, yourself as well. So, just to be able to like work in the veteran community and bring this together this time. And now I'm coming with my published book. I'm hot off, the Avico conference that I did last week, which was a veteran education conference, and being able to speak to people and in those places where you're thinking these are like professional teachers, VA professors. I had, directors coming up to me and all this, and they're interested in not just, my book about my deployment to Iraq, but when they heard I had a comic book, everybody was like, "Why didn't you bring your comic book here?" And I was like, "I thought this was a little too highbrow for that." And they were like, "Absolutely not. We want to see this." And it let me start speaking about it, and some of the driving reasons why I did it, and connecting it to my veteran time, getting out, struggles, trying to integrate and everything. It was so I'm amped.
So just to go back a little bit, tell people who might be watching this for the first time what your comic's about, and then we'll really dig into Troublemakers.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, uh, Tales of Nihilism is basically the studio house that we've got for different series. We have like a main series run, short stories, and little comic strips that we do as well. But the main story, The Ballad of Philip Kirshner, is about a normal guy, and he lives in a world full of superheroes, and it shows just how like awful and hard it would be to survive and exist in that world. And that's part of my taking direct experience of getting out of the military, being a combat infantryman, coming right out of the surge, and trying to reintegrate into society, and going through those struggles and those pitfalls. And then you just take that and superimpose living in a superhero world, and it just melds together so well.
It really struck me as a combination of, Fallen Down, that movie with Michael Douglas, some elements, The Boys TV series is kind of ignited interest in Garth Ennis's series, but it took it from the actual, like, you know, for lack of a better term, Stephen, the non-player character in a comic book series that's just
Yeah,
walking down the street to get their coffee, their dry cleaning, and all of a sudden, this monster, bad guy, good guy just crushed their car with one payment left, and they're like, "What do I do now?" And there's
yeah.
no real recourse for them. And I just thought that was really interesting how you pulled that off with, what I had read.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a few comics, have tried to do these things. You've got like what is it? One of the Joker, deals, One Bad Day, and then there was a Spider-Man comic where they tried to do it from like the point of view of a reporter, and he's watching the Gwen Stacy event happen. But I think what they always do is they still give credence to the superheroes. They still give their world like this this over abundance that they shouldn't have. And I'm trying to say, like, this is what it's like being a normal person, and you live in this world, and you think about all the crazy stuff that goes on regular, in day-to-day life, and the struggles that we have. And that's who I wanted to relate to, is like the everyday man, just normal people.
So that was last year, and I gotta tell you,
Mhm.
man, Oscar Mike Radio was right about 7 years old this time last year when we met for the first time, and I've had a lot of cool experiences, but it was really cool getting a signed comic book from you and Pittman, and seeing like the Oscar Mike Radio logo inside the comic book. That meant a lot to me, man. I just want to let you know that that's always like stuck with me as one of those times where you support a fellow veteran, and that it's there's no doubt it's appreciated. And look at what you've done in a year. And moving on,
Absolutely.
yeah, man. I mean, I just want to tell you, it was really, really cool, really, really appreciated. And then you tell me, and we started talking like December last year. He's like, I got this book dropping in March. I'm like, book? When did you have the time to write a book? But you're doing it. And I'm like, this is gonna be good because talking to you offline, you went in the army, you were proud to serve your country, you did your job, but it wasn't all like roses and like what we hear from the special operators community. There was you kind of told the story warts and all in a way that people don't hear very often. What kind of led you to say, you know what, I've got this in my mind, I need to get it out, and I'm going to do it no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, when we went through the deployment, just for the background on that, I was deployed out of Fort Hood with the first Cav to Bakuba, Iraq, 2006 to 2007. And when we got there, the leader of Al Qaeda, Al Zakari, had just been captured, and Bakuba was considered the capital of Al Qaeda. So once that happened, that entire area just exploded and went crazy. Um, and I knew that I was going through something that was like pivotal. Like it was a part of the Iraq conflict that was important. You know, you have those markers like the invasion, you have like Fallujah, you have Sadr City, and there's still people in the military community today that you can talk about Bakuba and they know about all the operations that went on during that time period, and people, respect that deployment. So going through it, I knew it was important, and I was like, I definitely want to write about this, and this is going to formulate a lot of my creative wants and drives later on down the road. But I didn't really have any sort of like organization or creative writing skills or anything like that, so I just took what I could at the end of the deployment and wrote down as much as I could, that I could remember. And it was a 15-year process that I would pick those notes back up. I would maybe write some other stuff. I would talk to some guys, and I would go back and forth between battle buddies, talking about the philosophy behind writing the book, and if it was worth it. And eventually, my team leader, Josh Nance, was like, a lot of guys either mentally or physically can't talk about these things nowadays, and if you can, then you need to do it. And so I was like, okay, that it sat down and just started writing it down. Hooked up with a publisher who deals with nonfiction, and he's got a veteran author group as well. And yeah, he just helped me edit it and and go from there. So yeah.
You get the book out, it drops in March. What's been the reaction from people reading the book? And I mean, did any of your squad mates, pick it up and get back to you about what they thought of it?
Yeah. So, I got a lot of battle buddies that are on Facebook and all that. The reception from that has been positive. They're like, okay, we enjoy this. This is a good depiction of what we went through. And, we're on board with the story that you're telling here. I tried to give everybody like ample room to, try to talk to me before I published it and maybe work out kinks and stuff like that. But you know how it is. Trying to coordinate all that stuff. So we did the best we could, and I just put the best story that I could forward. And to hear my battle buddies to my left and right say, we're proud of this. We think this is a great product. To me, I don't need to sell another book just to be happy with that. Although I would like to,
I was gonna say, is this gonna
yeah,
well, I was gonna ask that. Is this gonna be it? I mean, you
no,
you you worked this hard. Are you done writing for real? No way. Come
no,
on.
but it did make publishing it worth it, just
Yeah.
to hear that and be like, okay, these guys, they believe in what I did.
Well, because I remember there was a book called Chicken Hawk way before you and I were born, written by Robert Mason. And one of the things he dealt with is when he put it out, a lot of his flight mates in first cav flying the Hueys were like, you were a real a-hole. You know, I didn't do that, or I remembered it
Hmm.
differently. And there was some back and forth. And then, one thing I did want to talk to you about, um, it kind of fits the subject. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but all of a sudden in the SEAL community, there's this breakdown of fraternity and brotherhood. Like they're just sniping at each other. And, I'm talking about it with a couple of Marine buddies of mine. We're like, we don't see that as much as we're loath to admit it, Stephen. We don't see that. We don't see it with the Delta. We don't see it with
Hmm.
the Green Berets. We don't see it with the Airborne Rangers.
Yeah.
And we don't see it with Force Recon or MARSOC. It's only the SEALs doing it. And I didn't know if you had any perspective on that, because this is the thing about your book is you read it and you're like, okay, we're finally seeing what the real 11 Bravo is going through, not the high speed operator. And
Yeah.
it's not all like glory and I'm the biggest and baddest. There's some like, nasty stuff. So I was
Yeah.
curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I had two different active duty tours, and when I went back in the second time, it was required that you went through the special forces, at least the selection process. So, I went back in through the 18 X-ray program and all that kind of stuff. And one of the jokes going through there was the only difference between the Green Beret selection process and the SEAL process is that they have a creative writing portion at the end of theirs for this. and and I think it's just a different mentality. Like, and it's really kind of like a something that I've seen throughout my lifetime. You're watching movies from the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. If there's an actor who's a SEAL or something, that's always crazy, badass, high speed, and the Green Beret motto is silent professional, the silent professional. So you you're about your deeds, not words, and trying to execute that mission at all costs. And there's a lot of guys that they've got those big personalities, and they get through the SEAL stuff, and it's amazing that you make it through that. It's amazing that you become a Navy SEAL. But sometimes maybe a little bit of that overinflated ego can hit you. And yeah.
It was just interesting because your book comes out, and again, it's very like, you're talking about, shitters and pissers, and what that's like when it's 121 degrees outside. You're talking about, dead animals,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. With none of the stuff you see in like Lone Survivor or any of the movies or whatever. And so it was just a very, very juxtaposed against, what people have in their minds. It was really, really cool. Um, you write the book, you go through the publishing process, you put it out, and you kind of answer the question beforehand. But do you have any desire to continue writing, say, fiction, or another, or maybe the start of Tales of Nihilism? I mean, is there any desire to do that at all?
Yeah, I mean, writing writing this book was specifically cathartic, getting all of this out and trying to get that point of view out. But as far as with the creativeness and creative writing, I'm still 100% in with Tales of Nihilism, and using every avenue that I can to get my art out, get stories out. Because this is an expression of our culture, it's an expression of our generation and our time, and everything you can create and put out needs to be put out there. I also illustrate Army cadences in Addie's Veteran magazine, because it's just simple things like that where I feel like you know those old Army dirty cadences and things like that are going away, and we need to preserve the culture.
Man, I tell you, there was nothing like when, and I'm going to get some hate from certain groups on this, when the female, the WMs, the female Marines, women Marines, I call them WMs still, weren't in our, detachment run. And, the battery gunny and the battery first sergeant are like, hey, give me some motivation and I'll get the good dirty cadence out.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're running down. My first time in, you're running down Battalion Avenue through past 3 Corps, and you're singing 1, 2, 3 1/4. It's like yeah, and I found too, when I went back in and I went through WLC, I was a trouble child there too, because they're sitting there, all right, Sergeant, lead cadence, and doing all these like heavy infantry and combat cadences, and they're telling me you can't do that here. This is a professional place. But every single female Army person in there was clapping along, loving those cadences, and motivation is motivation.
Exactly. Because, I mean, I both know running is bad for you. Running is bad for you. So you went to Plastic City Comic Con last year, and you're coming back, this year. What is it about Plastic City that you like so much?
So I would say it's the premise, you know, the idea that this is geared towards independent artists, independent entertainers, creators, and stuff like that. If you go to a big con like New York Comic Con or something like that, you're going to pay 50, 75 bucks to get in the door. Then you're going to waltz around for the whole time, and everything's going to be marked up prices are crazy. You're going to be having to get autographs from your favorite celebrity and all that, and that's going to cost money. So, but even then, if you're a big named artist, that draws for Marvel, DC, or something like that, by the time somebody gets to your table, they they've been tapped out. Most people have been tapped out, and that's even if they've saved up all year long.
Well,
Here, it's
that's
it's
what
more intimate.
that's what I've noticed is on the one I went to earlier and other ones is, yeah, $50 to get in, and then everything's like it's like microtransactions in a freaking MMO game.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? If I just want to go to a different wing, well, that's another $5 to get the additional stamp. Or oh, you want to go here? Well, that's another $5, and it adds up quick.
Yeah, yeah. And paying to go to this one or that one, and then you got to choose what exhibition you're going to go to and all this. So Plastic City, it's just, no, man, we're all the independent authors, creators, artists. You come to my table, we'll talk comic shop for the next 10 minutes, buy a few comics, talk about the art, the story, and everything. And then now I'm getting to interface directly with people who enjoy my work.
Well, I think it's the thing that I remember thinking back to last year was people didn't really know who you were. But when you started going into the narrative, the story, people locked in. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh yeah," you could see the light bulb going off. Like, "Wow, why didn't I'm in." And then I could see them looking through your comic books, and they're like, they really like the art style. They like the colors you use, and they got real technical, a lot more technical than I did. And they liked the direction it was going, and it was cool watching you and talk with them all.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a joy, and it was such a like reaffirmation of what I was doing. Like, okay, the story that I'm trying to tell is something that people do want to hear. It's something that we are craving. Because we've been getting washed down media and entertainment for the last decade, and it's all this real simple, real marked down stuff that, and people are just getting burnt out and tired. And I'm like, we need a better story, and we need something that's hard hitting, and people realize it when it comes out, and they gravitate towards it.
Do you think in some ways the superhero, Hollywood, force feeding superhero stuff has helped or hurt you?
uh you know some ways it helps, some ways it hurts. I think overall it helps, because the worse Disney tells stories and Marvel tells stories, the better I can get my stuff out. There is a little crossover where people try to um, attach you to something, or say, hey, you're like this or you're like that, and you're like, no, this is my story, this is from me, my experiences, and this is where this is coming from. And I try to always like push those different angles and say, hey, I'm trying to get readers who think, I'm trying to get engagement and all that. And I'm telling you a better story, so I want you to be a better reader.
You want us to be better readers. That's people don't read anymore, and that's
Yeah.
that's one of the things. As we wind down the last couple of minutes, there's such the focus on these, getting your story done in short micro bursts. You got 30 to 90 seconds on TikTok or Reels to, you know, get it out there, and that's all the attention span people have. Do comic books compete anymore with people's attention?
I mean, uh, if you're talking about with animation and people's what you would call it, attention span and stuff like that, absolutely. People, when you're getting fed that kind of stuff over and over and over again, to be able to stop and listen and pay attention to what's going on, and just see the art, and how the not just the words of the story, you're not just reading a story, you're also seeing things, and those things are telling you more and more about how you're feeling inside, and what think as a reader. You get as much from a comic book as it gives to you.
What's next for you going into 2025, Stephen?
Well, we're still working Tales of Nihilism. So far, we have seven issues, and we're about to by the end of the year, we're going to drop our eighth issue. That's going to be the final installment of the first main series. So you're going to find out, what happens to Phil and the conclusion of his story, and then we're going on from there.
Outstanding, dude. It's really been, rewarding to watch a veteran, get out and deal with the stuff you had to deal with. And your transition was not easy, as we discussed, right? And you had some very valid points, like, hey, if you want veterans to succeed, you got to make some changes. And then
Hmm.
you found, this craft that you've been kind of working on all your life, and then you launch something, man. I understand how hard that is on a good day, and then to hold it in my hands in front of you was just really a surreal moment, man. I can't wait to see what you do next. So, again, Stephen will be in Leominster at Plastic City Comic Con this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Go down and check him out. Uh, get him to sign your comic book, talk shop with him, and Stephen, I can't wait to see what's next, brother.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to it too. And if you can't make it in, we still digitally publish on Global Comics. You can also go on Amazon, look up Troublemakers, the greatest dog and pony show in Iraq, pick up a copy there. But yeah, I would love to be in person and sign that for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So at 8 o'clock, we've got Oscar Mike Radio coming up. I have another author, Marine Corps veteran, Nitke's dad, talks about the warrior within. So we'll be back here in 30 minutes. Stephen, safe travels up to Massachusetts here in a couple days. I know you got Joel coming in from the Midwest. So you guys will be truly Oscar Mike. And thank you again.